Hello everybody, I'm Vicky of Bondatrix. I have a YouTube channel which has lots of how-to videos all about BDSM. Regular subscribers might have noticed a long pause between videos. I had an awful cold which turned into a chest infection which hung around for a good few months, so I wasn't going to try and make videos when I couldn't stop coughing all the time. But now I'm back. And I'm going to do a couple of videos now which focus on something a little bit different. BDSM in relation to certain aspects to do with aging. BDSM is something that is not age specific, that we don't just do at a particular time in our lives. A lot of people actually get the confidence to get into it later in life. And BDSM is perfectly fine to do later in life. One of the things that can affect it, if you've been a regular player, is when you start to hit perimenopause and menopause. As I am of a certain age, this has recently been impacting my life the last few years, and I wanted to share some of the insights with you because there is so little information out there, and the people that I have talked to about this in person or some of my recent online posts, people have been really grateful to have some kind of information out there, and doing a quick search on YouTube brought up absolutely nothing about menopause in relation to BDSM. So you might think this video isn't for you, let's skip on, and really that's probably only appropriate if you're already way past the menopause and all your play partners are, and you're not going to play with the younger people. Because if you're younger, it's useful to have some idea of what could be ahead so that when you reach your 40s, you've got some idea what to look out for. And even if you're a man, if you like to play with women, then this could impact play partners that you're going to have either now or in the future. So firstly, very quickly, what is menopause? What is perimenopause? So around about early 40s, mid 40s, depends on the person, women will start to generally hit perimenopause. This is where periods become more erratic and they start to experience some of the symptoms of menopause, but usually on a less frequent scale, on a less severe scale. Menopause is technically when you haven't had a period for a year, then you are considered in the menopause. And women experience all sorts of different ranges of symptoms and severity. Some women go through perimenopause and menopause with very, very minimal side effects, consequences, so they can just sail by, not really notice it, not have much of an impact on their lives. Other women have some impacts, but they can kind of cope with them and they're not too severe and they just manage it and get through that period in their life. Other women, it can be quite severe and have quite a strong impact. Knowing what is likely to happen, what could happen, what things to watch out for is really useful and isn't something that's talked enough about in society. Having that information then lets you make the decision at that point whether it's worth researching HRT, whether it's worth going to your doctor about it, and in all aspects of your life, what changes to make to adapt for anything that you are experiencing, either physically or mentally. One of the first ones that I'm going to talk about is mood swings. Now, women are used to this with their periods, but they can usually predict a lot more when they're going to have erratic moods, whereas with perimenopause and the menopause, there's no set times of the month where that's more likely to have an impact. And it's slightly different. It can manifest itself in the usual feeling a bit down and weepy and more emotional, but actually one of the interesting ones for menopause is it can focus more on irritability. You suddenly have a lot less ability to just take shit from people. And obviously, this can have an impact in a play session. If you're submissive and you feel like your dominant isn't quite being as fair as normal or is making too many demands of you, you might find it a little bit less easy to just say, "Oh, yes, sir, 3 bags full, sir, I'll do whatever you say, sir," you might actually start to feel a bit irritated and think, well, I wouldn't normally feel like this. Normally I'm happy to do anything because my submissive side has come out. So that can be something to watch out for. And if it happens, then you need to have a talk with your dominant about these feelings and emotions that might be happening, and then see if there's just little ways that you can adapt the play, adapt the kind of tasks you're given, adapt the kind of language that's used that might then minimize those impacts during the scene and let you get back into being a good submissive. As a dominant, it might mean that you have less tolerance for submissives that are being a bit rubbish. So this can work well in the play. It can mean that then you're a stricter dominant who's going to enforce things more, but it's something to watch out for. It's definitely something where if you're having a day where you feel highly irritable, then you need to think about whether you're actually safe to play, whether it's a good time to play. Make sure that the submissive is aware, because when you play, you always need to be able to be in control of yourself and to be self-aware. As a submissive, you need to be able to talk to the dominant, and you need to be able to communicate, use safe words where necessary. And as a dominant, you need to be in control of yourself, because you are controlling someone else. And if you're not controlling yourself, you're not responsible enough to be controlling that other person. So you need to not be getting real world angry with someone and letting that come into the play scene where things could then get out of hand and get dangerous. Hot flushes are the most common one that people talk about with menopause. They're the one that we all know, and I think it can become this trope in society that that's the only thing that people know. So when you start to get hot flushes, oh, you're menopausal, that's all it is, you'll be a bit warmer for a while, oh great, we can turn the heating bill down. Hot flushes are generally not like that at all. If you are suffering from hot flushes, it is this sudden, overwhelming feel like your body is burning up, and if you don't get all your clothes off right now and just be able to just be there for a moment, you might faint, you feel like you're going to explode. It is such an uncomfortable feeling. It is not suddenly, oh, now I'm nice and warm and that's great. It is suddenly you're fine 1 minute and the next your body is absolutely drenched in sweat and you just cannot cope with anything. And if you're experiencing them on that kind of level, then that might be something to think about your kink wardrobe. A lot of kink outfits are designed to be super tight, very restrictive, corsets, latex, don't let your skin breathe, aren't easy to get out of if you're in that situation, aren't an easy thing to cool down in. So it might be worth having a think about having some outfits that are more suitable for this time in your life, that you can either take off easily if you need to, that you can get air in, that you can at least sit down easily in a club if you're suddenly experiencing a hot flush and you just need to sit down, have someone get you a glass of water and a fan, carry a fan with you as well, and just be able to get through that moment. They don't usually last a really long time, so it is just being able to get past that initial few moments that otherwise, if you can't, it can cause panic, and that's not nice. Then having a hot flush that then leads into a panic attack when you're out at a fetish event just wanting to have a nice time. Vaginal dryness is definitely one that can affect a lot of women, and it's something that in a BDSM sense, where it's so connected with sexual activities, is going to have a massive impact. Now, the big thing here is lube. If you're reaching your 40s and you're not using lube yet, then you're really missing out, because lube can add to lots of different play sessions anyway. But by the time you're hitting your 40s, make sure you have lube. When you're going out to a play club, have a little bottle of travel lube with you. If you're playing at home, always have lube on hand. If you find that this is a major symptom of yours, but you don't want to go on full HRT patches or anything like that, then it's still worth talking to your doctor, because you can get certain treatments that are just for treating the vaginal dryness, because it can get to the point where it's more than just a little bit uncomfortable inserting a toy or a penis or something. It can get to the point where it's uncomfortable just going to the toilet and wiping yourself because you're that dry, or it just causes cracking and bleeding. So be aware of the possibility of vaginal dryness, and in a BDSM sense, always make sure that you've got lube on hand wherever you are. If there's going to be any kind of intimate sexual play in what you're doing, just to make everything more comfortable. And if this does become a big thing for you, then experiment with lube. There's lots of different types of lube out there. Do a little bit of research, do a bit of experimentation. There's two main types of lube. There's water-based lube and silicone-based lube. So water-based is the most common and that's the easiest to use, but it can dry out occasionally, so you need reapplication if you're doing longer scenes. The other type is silicone lube, and silicone lube, the main thing you have to watch for is that it can react with silicone toys, which is what a lot of toys are made out of now. So the benefits are that it can last longer, so you don't need to keep reapplying, but you need to be careful that it's definitely going to be safe with the toys that you're using, and that the lube you're using is going to be safe with condoms, because if you're only perimenopausal, you can definitely still get pregnant in that time. So if you are using condoms for that side of things, for contraception, you need to make sure they're safe. But also if you're using condoms just to keep toys clean, to share toys between different people, to play with different people, then you need to make sure that the lube you're using is going to mean that that condom is still giving you all the protection that you need. Loss of libido is also a big one that can hit during this time and can obviously impact BDSM play. So people have a kink drive and a sex drive, and they can be very closely connected for some people. For other people, they're not as closely connected. It is perfectly fine to have BDSM without sex, but for a lot of people there'll be some interconnection, or it just may hit all of that side of you and you decide you've got a lot more interest suddenly in knitting and gardening. So don't panic. It isn't necessarily going to mean that for the rest of your life you have much lower interest in BDSM and in sex, but do be aware that it can be a possibility. If you've got a long-term play partner, don't try and hide it from them. It's going to be noticeable. You're going to have less enthusiasm for things. You're going to suggest things less often if this is impacting on you. If you try and just put a brave face on it and just mask it and hide it from them, they're going to be able to tell over time. It's going to lead to less enthusiasm, less enjoyment for both of you. It's far better to have a conversation and to be able to say that although you've been the one who's been up for it 6 times a week and instigating things in the past, actually you're not feeling that quite so much, so maybe they need to ask about things, but also in a way that there is absolutely no guilt attached. We are conditioned by society too much to think that we have to have a very healthy, high sex drive, kink drive if we've got a partner, that we have to provide for them in that way, that it's more an obligation that's expected than something that you give, and that especially if you're a woman, if you then start pulling back, then oh, that's a terrible thing, that then they're going to go elsewhere. And it really shouldn't be like that anymore. It should be something that is fully consensual all the time, not just expected because you've been in a long-term relationship with this person. And it should never come with guilt if you're just not in the mood, if you say no, if you don't want to do it. So make sure that you look at yourself and your feelings around guilt and saying no and not being in the mood for things, and that you have that frank and open discussion with your partner, preferably not when you're about to have a play session, preferably at some other time when they're not already hyped up and they're looking forward to something, when you can just have this conversation about your emotions, your feelings, your drives, your interests, and what's going on. And I think once you've got to that point, then it's not necessary to just immediately go with it of, I've got a lower drive, therefore we don't do anything. It can be, well, I've got lower drive, so now we need to have a little bit more pre-scene negotiation. We need to try a few different things. does it help more now if you flirt with me for a few days leading up to it, talking about what kind of things we might need to do, that in the past maybe I didn't need that, but now it will help me to get thinking about it and get interested in it, get excited about it? Do you need more negotiation just before you do the play so that you can talk about what kind of things you are in the mood for on this particular day, time, that will then be able to get you in the mood for something? Do you want to just go for it with your partner saying, right now I'm not in the mood, but I've been with you for long enough, you know how to press my buttons, you know how to get me in the mood, so let's give things a go, but just be aware that I'm not feeling it right now, and if in 15 minutes time I'm still not feeling it, please can we just sit on the sofa, watch a movie and have a cuddle? And that way your partner is hopefully much more aware to read you and what's going on, so they're not automatically hyped up if they're going to have this amazing play scene and go ahead with it no matter what you're experiencing and where your brain is going. And that way this lower libido, lower kink drive doesn't have to mean that you never play anymore or it becomes once every 3 months, but it's things to make that easier for you so there's a lot less pressure, there's less feeling of obligation, there's less feeling of guilt if you can't get into the mood, and there's more adaptation for how you're feeling, which will make you feel more valued, which might then mean that you're more likely to play. When it's not a regular play partner and it's just thinking about going out to a club, then embrace the idea that clubs can be a social occasion as well. So if you go to a club because you'd already bought the ticket and you've already made your plans and you're going, but then you get there and you think, I'm really not in the mood for play today, I've got no libido, I've got no interest in this, then see it as a social occasion. See it as a chance to chat with lots of people, to make new friends, to catch up with friends that you've got, watch the play that's going on, get some ideas for future times when you are more in the mood, and don't put yourself under obligation that because you're at a play event you've got to play. And if there's options of clubs where you don't have to purchase a ticket in advance, then keep them on the radar, put them in the diary, keep the day so that you don't have firm plans, and then you can decide on the day. And if you wake up thinking, oh, actually that would be fun right now, let's go along, then go along and have a great time. And if you wake up thinking, oh, I've got no interest in kink today, then don't. And it's really nice to have that freedom and to be able to start listening to yourself more. And I think as you get older, that's easier to start listening to yourself, to start prioritizing yourself, and start making more decisions that are about you. Whereas I think when you're in your 20s, it's a bit harder, that society's telling you all these things, you're wanting to fit in with people a lot more, and you're wanting to do the things that you feel you ought to be doing. Whereas I think like one of the real benefits of perimenopause and menopause is that you start to actually listen to yourself a bit more and make more decisions for you. One really unfortunate one can be loss of confidence for a lot of people. Perimenopause, your body starts changing, you start putting on weight a lot more easily, your hair starts to get a bit thinner and duller, your skin starts to be affected, you start to get more weight around your middle, so your clothes then don't fit, and it can just be this real time of then, combined with possible loss of libido, of just feeling a bit down and just not feeling like your sexy self that you did before. So in a play sense, then that can be something to try and think about adapting the play so that it builds you up. So you could, as a submissive, you can mention this to the dominant that you're playing with, that you've had a little bit of a confidence drop, and they can maybe give you some tasks to do that might make you feel more confident, or you can ask them to pay you more compliments during the scene, telling you that you're a good girl, that you're really attractive, that you're really beautiful submissive to play with, that they feel lucky and to be able to play with you. And just hearing those things from someone else may or may not help, but it's worth a try. As a dominant woman, you could turn it into a scene. You could have your submissive take you out and treat you to a haircut and a manicure and take you out for a nice lunch and give you plenty of compliments and just treat and pamper and spoil you a bit, so that then you can have some things that make you feel good about yourself. Or it could just be more of a scene at a club or at home where you get them to worship you. And I don't mean body worship, that is what the subs always jump to, especially if they're men, but worshipping you, telling you how wonderful you are. And I like to do this at events now, and often you're quite surprised with the things that they come out with, even if they don't know you that well or they've just been watching you play with others. If they've wanted to play with you, then they've generally actually been admiring you from a distance, and they've got some ideas already that they'd like to pay you those compliments, and that can make you feel good about yourself and powerful. Forgetfulness, brain fog, that can be a really big one with perimenopause and menopause. And it's horrible. If you've had a good memory, if you've always been sharp, a lot of people into BDSM are quite intelligent people, because you have to suddenly have this brain to think a lot more about what you're going to do with another person, rather than just in and out sex done. So it can come as more of a shock if you've always had this very sharp mind, this good memory, to then suddenly start finding that you trail off in the middle of a sentence, that you just can't remember the word for pasta, that your brain just does not work, it doesn't function. So in a play sense, be aware that maybe you've got to pack the night before if you're going to a club, so then you've got chance, if you've forgotten things, to put things in. Make lists that you can go back to of when I usually go to a play club, or when I'm playing with this person, these are the things that they're into, these are the things that I want to take with me. If you're submissive and your dominant usually gives you a long list of things to do and just rattles them all off at the start of a scene, maybe say, right now that's just going to lead to anxiety and stress. Can you give me one thing at a time and I will do that thing, and then give me another thing? Or if you want to give me a list of things and then leave me to get on with them, make it a written list that I can go back to. Find little ways to adapt your play, adapt your life, to make it easier to cope with the fact that you won't have the brain power that you have always had and been able to rely on. If you are experiencing this symptom, it will just disappear sometimes and you won't be able to get it back. And if you get stressed about that, then you're going to get panicky, and then it's going to have even less chance of coming back to you. So having the time to be able to go away, make a cup of tea, sit down, have a think, can I remember this right now? If not, relax, try and read a book for 2 minutes or something to just take your brain off worrying about it, and know that it will come back to you at some point. And when you do, try and write it down. I have had to make notebooks of a lot more lists of things of where I go for certain suppliers for bonder tricks, because before I'd just type it into the website and I'd know exactly who I went to. I'd been shopping with them for 20 years and then suddenly I can't remember the name of them at all. So yeah, it's been interesting. So there are lots more symptoms of perimenopause and menopause. I've just touched on a few. I've touched on some of the ones that I think can affect BDSM more than others. Hopefully that's given you some ideas. Please leave other ideas and suggestions and things that have worked for you in the comments on this video. Show this to friends, to males who play with women of that kind of age. Talk about it with people. There is so little that this is talked about. One of the things I was surprised about when I went on HRT was that it's not free. I've had free contraception from the NHS for my adult life, and then suddenly HRT is something that women need to be able to function, but you have to pay for it. And if you can't afford to pay for it, if you're on a really low income, then that's just going to perpetuate things, because if you can't get the HRT, you can't function, and you might lose your job over this. If you want to know more about perimenopause and the menopause, one of the really good resources that I found at the time was a book by Davina McCall. It was Menopausing or something like that. But if you look up Davina McCall and menopause book, it's the first hit that will come up on Google. That has lots of comprehensive information about all the different symptoms, the different types of HRT options that you have, and lots of women's real life experiences. Do the research, decide whether you want to go on HRT. I naively thought that the research would be going to the doctor and having a talk about it. Unless you get a really, really good doctor, it's not. You need to go to the doctor with the information already on hand. You need to go to them saying, I want HRT, put me on HRT. It's this really weird situation where I went to two doctors. The first one just said, oh no, you can't be menopausal yet. You can't, didn't even talk about perimenopause being a thing. You can't be menopausal yet, you're too young. Therefore, the weight gain, you're just eating badly. We could sign you up with a nutritionist so they can tell you how to eat better. The anxiety and low mood and loss of libido, well, that's obviously just depression. We can put you on antidepressants. And it was just horrible. I was like, no, I've had depression in the past. I know what that feels like, and this is nothing like that at all. I am not depressed. I've just got all these other things, all this brain fog and night sweats and insomnia and all these other issues. And it took lots of things going downhill further for me to then do the research, read the book, go back to the doctor with a long list of my symptoms. And again, they still tried to put me on antidepressants before HRT, but in that appointment, I had my list of 14 severe symptoms by that point that were heavily impacting my life, and had to be very forceful and insistent that I was not going to take antidepressants and I wasn't going to take no. I wanted HRT, and how did I start that process? And by the end of that appointment, I did get the prescription and I did start HRT. And literally, some of the symptoms within 48 hours, I noticed a massive improvement in my life. That won't be the same for everyone. HRT doesn't work for some people. For some people, it doesn't minimize the effects at all. There are very small health risks which are definitely important to be aware of so that you make that informed decision on whether HRT is right for you. But it is definitely worth trying if you feel that the symptoms are having a major impact on your life. And these adaptations I've talked about in the video, I was having to make major changes to my BDSM side of myself because of perimenopause. Whereas now that I've been on HRT for nearly a year, it's very minimal. I still sometimes have the lower libido than I used to and the lower kink drive than I used to, but even that is starting to come back now after a year on HRT. But I talked to my regular play partners so that they were more aware, and I put myself under less pressure to go to clubs as often as I was, so then I could go when I was really in the mood and really enjoy them and have a fantastic time when I do go. So I hope this has been helpful. I really think it's a topic we should talk about more as a society and not just in silly jokes about hot flushes. And I hope that YouTube doesn't just hide it behind lots of age restrictions and poor algorithms like they have been seeming to with my videos. Thank you for listening.